Welcome to episode 2 of the Nintopics podcast. I am Mike Perez, or you can call me Mike Odyssey, like on YouTube. And today we have the amazing honor of having none other than the very talented voice of Rosalina from the Super Mario games, Laura Faye Smith.
Nintopics podcast, all things Nintendo. With Mike Odyssey, we're talking games like Super Mario. Yeah!
All right. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Laura, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for coming back. I know we had you in the first episode of the podcast along with Kenny and Samantha, but you know, our fans love you so much. They wanted to see you back, and they wanted a one-on-one directly with you to get to know better. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
My pleasure.
But I want to know first, how are you? What have you been doing lately?
Lately, lots of scattered little projects. I've been doing a lot of dubbing, which is always fun and interesting to do. So
that's awesome.
Some of that, and lots of auditions for things, which is just, I think, part of this, it's good, right? I mean, you're constantly generating your own work when you're in this career. A project that I actually had been cast in, I want to say it was like January of this year, kind of went away. I didn't hear about it for a while. And then I contacted them and said, is this still happening? And they said, yes, but we were going to do it in LA and now we're moving it to the East Coast, but we still want you to do it. Okay, great. And then even more time went by. I didn't hear anything, kind of forgot about it. Suddenly on a casting site, saw an audition notice for that project for my role. And I was like, you could have just told me you wanted to recast it. And I was like, God, should I apply for it again? That could be funny. But then I didn't. And then the next thing after that is I got an email from them saying, we're just checking to see, if you're still interested and available. And I said, well, the funny thing is I saw a casting notice for my role for this project. And they said, we were just doing that as a backup in case you were no longer available because so much time passed. So that project is suddenly coming back and, so it's interesting how this career can be where you just, you can get things and then you're like, I'm doing this, and then you're not doing this, or maybe you are, you're not, you don't know, things can extend out.
Yeah, and it's something I've heard a lot from other actors as well, that from the first initial audition part to the actual job itself, it could take a while. I mean, I've heard people say, I auditioned for this 2 years ago, and now we're actually recording this date.
Yeah.
What's the longest you waited from audition to actual work?
To the actual work? I mean, it could be months. I want to say, maybe 4 to 6 months. You forget about it. You literally just have no memory of auditioning for it, of what that project was or what you did. There's times where it'll be like, great, you booked this. You get that from your agent, and then you're going back through all your old auditions, trying to even remember. Especially if you did a character voice for it, being what did you do for that? I don't even remember. I hope they have my audition, because if I show up, I'm just I don't remember what this was. That was such a long time ago. Because I do think things that we don't even think about on our end of it, funding or availability of a particular person that they really wanted involved, but they were involved in something that was going for a really long period of time. Or there's a project that me and another actress, a voice actress I know, we both auditioned for, and we both really wanted it. This was the project. It was an animated show, and neither of us heard anything about it, but we both had felt pretty good about what we had submitted. And then a year, I think, has gone by.
Wow.
And all of a sudden I was asked to audition for it again. And so I remember emailing her going, I think this thing never happened. I don't know what's going on, or why it's back, but it seems like it didn't happen. So yeah, it's weird how that'll be.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, do you guys consider a second call for an audition, a second type of interview? Okay, so we're narrowing it down and we want to hear her again just to see if she fits the role. Is that how it feels when they call you back for the same role?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, they're casting around a particular role. Let's say they cast you, and now they're trying to see if I sound good with you, or, we have chemistry, or just depending on what it is. Sometimes they're casting around a certain person, and then let's say your availability changed, you got another project. And so suddenly then everything can fall apart around it. I think casting is such a it's so much more intricate than probably actors give it credit for being sometimes, because we just want to know whether we got that job or not and what our schedule looks like. Where they're like looking at a ton of different factors, you know, and like things like money, like where suddenly someone who was going to produce it suddenly pulls out. And it's not a thing anymore. Yeah. Things change for a million reasons.
Wow.
You know, projects change and people's availability around those projects change for so many reasons. So I think sometimes when people theorize why people are coming to a project or leaving a project, half the time there's just like this whole other set of circumstances that you don't know anything about, and you never will, because it's just all behind the scenes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's a huge giant puzzle that they have to put together and make sure that they have all the right pieces in order before they proceed with the project. But this is so much interesting, because I've always wondered, what is it like, and what goes on behind. What's the process like for auditioning for a role, and then what is the mind process that you have to go put yourself in when you're auditioning, and then you have to make sure that you're patient enough to wait. And sometimes you never hear back. Sometimes you do hear back. When you hear back, it could be later on. So that's incredibly interesting, and
it's a constant hustle. Like, you know, when people I want to be a voice actor, I'm like, great. Like, you might love it, you might hate it. Like, if you like routine, consistency, knowing like, you know, like what your schedule is and what your day looks like and when your money's coming, and like if you like that kind of like that security of knowing that, this could be potentially a really uncomfortable job, because you literally, it's like job hunting every day of your life. And when I say every day, like it's a Saturday we're doing this, and like I have to put myself on tape for something as soon as we finish this. And then I have a couple voiceover auditions, and one of them just showed up right before we did this. I was doing one, and now I'm doing two. You know, there's so many things, like your day will change where you're like, I'm going to go do this today. And then suddenly your agent's like, we need this in 2 hours. And you're like, I'm not going to be able to make it to the thing I was going to do, because I won't have time to get there, do that, and get back and get this recorded in time. There's a lot of same day turnaround in this job. There's, you know, you've got to be extremely flexible, extremely comfortable with the unknown. And earlier in my life, I really wasn't like, I didn't want to be a full-time actor, because I kind of knew that was some of what that game was about. Like, I really was like, I want to know where my next check is coming from, and I want that consistency. And there were things I wanted to do financially, that this, you know, this is really up and down. It can be really great at times, and it can be really dry at times. And, you know, it's not because you're not doing a good job. You're just like not what you're looking for in that moment. Getting really comfortable with that isn't everybody's cup of tea. So I'm like,
I'm sure there's a lot of it's not so much rejection, because again, it's a particular person that they're looking for, particular voice, or maybe a person that could fit the role how they envision it. And so I see how you have to also have a tough skin to not take it personal every time you don't get that call back, or they say we decided to go in another route. So, man, I commend you. I
just saw this really interesting. People were posting today on Instagram like this clip of Lisa Kudrow she played Game of Friends, and she had given like some kind of a commencement speech somewhere, and she was talking about when she was on Friends, they like had this dinner with James Burrows, who was like, you know, this big TV producer and stuff. They were all telling stories about times they'd gotten fired, which is like, you know, not uncommon, where you test, you know, you do a show and it tests, and the network might feel like certain people aren't working right, and they'll take them out. So they were all telling these stories. And I guess James Burrows said, well, Lisa's got the worst one. She got fired from Frasier.
Wow.
You know, he was kind of like that. But then he goes, but that was so great, because you would have never been on this show. You wouldn't be on Friends if you had gotten that show. And that's something as an actor, I think you don't think about. You only think about, oh, I didn't get this thing, and people don't like me, and maybe I wasn't good, instead of being like, it's all just part of this path. And there's so many times where like you'll want a project so bad, and you're so right for it, and it sounds so fun, and you want it. And then there's times when you get those projects and they're anything but fun, like they're a mess for whatever reason, or you don't get it, and then you hear about what a nightmare it was, and you're like, well, dodge that bullet, you know, because it sounded like it was thoroughly unpleasant for everyone involved. And that, you know, there's this great quote Marianne Williamson used to say all the time that I like, where she says, if the train doesn't stop in your station, it's not your train.
Oh, wow. I like that. I like it.
And there's another train coming, so just wait, because that's the one that's going to take you where you really want to go.
Wow.
And I think about that all the time, like when I don't get stuff going, you know, it opens and it doesn't even necessarily mean it's opening you up for the next job. It might be opening you up for a relationship. It might be opening you up for another fantastic opportunity, or there's going to be someone in your family who really needed you in that moment. And had you been on this thing, you would have been put in this position to choose, and you were free, and you could just readily say yes to someone who needed you.
Yeah.
So you can't ever say what it's going to be for, but I do think it helps to think about it that way. If you're going to be in this, that disappointment is sometimes other opportunity in the making, and other times it's leaving you open for something where you really need it to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic. And for those of you who are interested, open your ears. This is very valuable information that you need to absorb, because if you're just starting in voice acting and you're looking for a future and you have the passion for this career, then you better be willing to actually be patient. I love that train quote. I'm going to go back in this video.
If the train doesn't stop in your station, it's not your train. And then just always remembering, it's not one train. There's many trains. Like if you're in a station, and get on the ones that are meant for you, and don't worry. And I think about that in terms of relationships too, right? Like friendships and romance and all those things. Like not everybody's going to love/want you for every single thing all the time, and that's fine. There's just lots of other opportunity out there. I didn't even know. I can think of things that I wouldn't have been as open to if I hadn't been so available. Things I wouldn't have necessarily said yes to if I hadn't been kind of like, I got nothing else going on, I might as well. And you kind of have that attitude about it, as opposed to when you're busy and when you are in demand, like you really have to choose.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. And if you guys didn't know, Laura is not only a voice actress, she is also, in my opinion, an amazing actress as well. Because I did my little research and I took a peek a little bit in her work. Amazing actress, by the way. Can you talk to me a little more about that? About how did you get into actual acting? Because I know we all know you as the voice of Rosalina. We heard the story on how you got started with the Rosalina, but acting and how did you end up? Where did that passion start for acting?
I've told this story before, but my sister was interested in theater, and I'm 2 years younger, and so she was like at the high school doing theater, and I was in the middle school that was just kind of like just across the street from it. So my mom would come pick us up, and I think I was doing like photography or something at the school, and I would get done before rehearsal was over for the day. So we would go sit in the back of the auditorium and wait for her to finish, and I would watch rehearsal, and I was fascinated with it, but kind of almost like train wreck fascinated. Like this is so weird. I thought it was so weird, but then I remember when the show opened, I went and saw it every night. I couldn't. I was so like just like kind of taken with it, and I had wanted to do I was like actually in rehearsals for like cheerleading tryouts at that point. I remember. And then my mom was having surgery, and she said, "Will you wait a year?" Because she wasn't going to be able to drive, and we lived way out in the country. And she said, "Your sister doesn't have her license. Your dad has to work. I won't be able to drive to get you to practice every day at like 6 a.m. before school starts." Like, we had no public transportation where we lived. It was a school bus came and that was it. But you either drove but there was no like public bus. And so she said, "Could you wait a year?" And in that year, while I waited, I auditioned for a show and I got cast. And once I did that, it was the first time in my life really being like, I know what I want. Like, where I'm okay, I feel completely where like I found my flock, like I found my thing. And that's like literally the clearest I ever remember having that thought in my life. Like I can remember that feeling. And so then just was obsessed with it. But then, did a lot of other things, because when you're an actor, like it does like making a living at it just as that's really can be challenging, especially depending on where you live. So I majored in English and theater. I've worked in offices in the corporate world. I've worked for nonprofit. I've taught. I've done all sorts of things in addition to being an actor. But that's kind of like where it started. So yes, people may be like, "Oh, I know her as the voice of Rosalina," but my start was theater, like doing live theater, being an actor. Like I was doing all that long before I ever got an audition for a voiceover job at all. Like I had been doing that for years. Is working as just a professional actress and doing, some like Portland, where I was living, was a lot of non-union commercial work. There wasn't as much TV and film, but I was still doing a little bit of it here and there. But like it was mostly like on-camera commercials, industrials, some short films that came up. But yeah, that was where all my training was like, and I had a huge improv background too. Not because I wanted it, but because when I moved to Portland, that was the only thing people would hire me to do. And I was like, really? Because I wasn't very good at it, but I kept getting hired to do it. But then in the process of like having to perform all the time, I was kind of learning on the job. And then I went and got some training and then got better at it. And then that's been invaluable to me everywhere, both in voiceover and in like live work. This fact that I have this big improv background and I'm very comfortable with kind of anything that comes up.
Yeah. I mean, from what I've seen, you are an incredible actress, by the way. And I know that your huge star is still ahead of you. I feel like it's so close. But which brings me to this question: what has been so far your most memorable role in acting? Because we all know you in voice acting, but to me, I'm like, wait, I need to dig deeper into this because I'm so interested. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I played some stuff in theater that I like really love doing. There's going to be things I'm going to say, and people are like, I've never heard of that. There's a play I did called The Receptionist by Adam Bach, and I actually ended up doing that show twice. I produced it the first time at a smaller theater in Portland, and then the woman who directed it was the associate artistic director at Portland Center Stage, which was one of the biggest theaters in Portland. And so right before we closed that show, she said, put everything in storage, like take all the props, because we might be putting that into our season because there's something moving around in our season that we think we might need something to fill. And then I ended up doing it again there. We did it a second time and it ran for like 8 weeks or something like that. Like it was a long run. And most stuff I do, like one of the reasons I love being an actor is I have kind of a short attention span. Like I bore easy. Like I know people who are like that's one of the reasons I think I wasn't good in desk jobs. Like I say I was good at them, but emotionally, personally, I didn't feel very fulfilled because there was a lot of routine to it. Like I thrive out of routine. Like some people thrive in routine and I thrive out. And that there's no judgment on either one. You just got to kind of know where you are. So for me, when I would start a job, like a desk job, it was fine until it hit that routine point. And then suddenly I'm like, oh, I don't know that I really want to do this kind of with no end in sight, where if you're working on a play, that thing's going to close in 6 to 8 weeks and you're done and you never have to do it again. But I know there's people who like to talk about being like a really long running Broadway show or something. I'm like, God, I don't know how many times I would re-sign up for that same thing, even though live theater can be very different every night. But I that was one role I will say, like knowing my level of tolerance for routine and kind of my ability to get bored, that particular role in that particular show, because I love that playwright so much and that script, and I love the people I was working with, I never got tired of it, even though when it was all said and done, I had done like 2 fairly decent runs of it. So that would be one of my favorites. Oh, and I didn't even say what it was. It was a play called The Receptionist.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's an amazing story.
Yeah. And then I'd say for like TV, working on Grimm was really fun. Playing Dieta and Grimm was great just because it was such a professional production. The people involved were really, really nice. And it just like working on that level of a show.
That's awesome. And where do you see yourself? Like in not voice acting, but in acting, where do you see yourself? Where are you headed? Where do you want to see yourself in the next 5 years when it comes to you as an actress? Yeah,
that's a great question. TV is what I'm really interested in, because I feel like we're in this golden age of television where the content, there's great movies out there, but my gosh, the content on TV is stellar. And the amount of like really wonderful actors who are in like shows on like HBO and Netflix and all this stuff, like the level of talent in these TV shows and the writing on some of these shows is so good.
And the production quality has just skyrocketed, It's like you can't really tell the difference between a scene in a movie and a TV show. It's so amazing.
I mean, I think, when you kind of think of TV of older times, there really is so many different types. And that's what I think is so fascinating about film in general. There's so many different ways of telling a story, and that the director has such a job, and the DP too, the director of photography, like tells you what you're looking at. Like they make that decision. Like I was talking about this on a different interview, that when you look at a stage, you can decide where you're going to look. Like you can be like, I'm going to watch my friend, or I'm going to focus on this over here, or what's that really distracting person doing over there? Like the camera and TV has so much control because it just shows you what you get to look at. Like whatever you're looking at in that frame, that's it. That's what you get to see.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I think that's such a different, as an actor, that's such a different relationship that you have with the project because the choices that you get to make or what anyone gets to see of anything you've done is not your decision. Like you do not know what a project's going to look like until it comes out. That's your play. You know what that looks like because you're up there every night and you're seeing it and you're doing it. But film, you go watch it and you're like, oh, they cut that part, or oh, you can hear my voice, but you can't even see what I was doing during that part because they're focused on a different actor. So I just saw a cut of a short film that I did, and it just came out so good, and I loved the way it looked. But yeah, like where you're like, oh, the camera's not even on you for that part. Like you can hear me talk, but all the whatever you were doing, like nobody sees that in that final cut. So there's this great element of surprise even for the actors in projects like that. But
that's awesome.
TV is a place I think is incredibly exciting right now.
Yeah. That's awesome, and I really hope to see you on our favorite TV shows pretty soon because I know you're that talented. You're that talented, so I know that we. You want to be my agent?
Will you be my agent? Will you go pitch me and be like, she's really talented. She needs to be on your show.
My experience, I would say yes, but I have no experience with what I was doing. I'm like, probably get you a role selling peanut butter somewhere. I don't know. But all right, so let's go ahead and get to the questions that are little, well, not little, the big questions that we have here. It's not little questions. Some people wrote sentences. We're not going to go over all of them, but we'll go over some of the questions that we got here from our journalists on the channel. And let's see here. All right, so we got a question from Bro Lindo. He's an awesome member of the channel, and he is asking, let's see here, have you owned any Nintendo console?
A console, like
you can, or
I mean, like a PlayStation or something.
Yeah.
Yes. What did we have for a while? We had like a PlayStation. And an Xbox. We had both of those for a while. And I have to say, didn't play with them nearly as much as we should have. Like, but again, like I'm hustling for work a lot of
of course.
To go play video games all day is like not the best idea if you want to pay your rent and eat.
All right, and then we also have another question here from Lottie. Lottie is the artist that made that little animation.
I remember.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Let's see here. What was your very first? Let me see here. No, that's not the question. Wait, let's see here. Okay, so what was your very very first video game that you've ever played?
Oh.
Now, we can go back to.
I was going to say you have to be Atari. Like
there you go. Atari. Yeah, so that was my first video game too. Back in the day.
Yeah, like I mean, because my dad had one. It was probably like Breakout or Space Invaders, I want to say.
Oh wow, yeah. That was my first video. I remember that there was a version of Mario on the Atari that just looked horrendous. Oh, really? Yeah, because Mario came first on those big giant cabinets first, the little arcade ones. But then Atari started porting those games from the cabinet to like the Atari system. It looked nothing like the game at all. And we were like, what is this? What are those little squares moving that way? Because in those cabinets, at least there was color. You could tell the little character, the little AB character. But in Atari, for some reason, they kept all the characters the same color. So they used one color to identify characters like that. So
yeah. That's what I feel like I remember playing that, and I know we had other games. Those are just the two I kind of remember playing.
Yeah.
And Frogger, I remember playing.
And Frogger, oh yeah, we forget Frogger. Yeah. Let's see here. What was your favorite? This question comes from Pengers. I never know how to pronounce that name. Pengers. Who was your favorite character to voice and why? Or who has been your favorite character to voice and why when it comes to being a voice actor?
I would say Rosalina is my favorite. Noelle and Genshin Impact is a big, second. They're different, but yeah, Rosalina was the first video game character I ever did at this level. Like I had done some other smaller things, but it was really exciting to work on her. So she's got a very special place in my heart.
That's awesome. And then Noelle, of course, is a big character as well in Genshin Impact. That game is done so amazing.
Yeah, no, that game is really fun too. And and Noelle talks a lot more than
and
you have like hangouts and stuff for those characters.
Oh, that's awesome. So hey guys, if you have not played Genshin Impact, you want to hear Lara speak more lines, then Genshin Impact is the game you need to start playing.
Noelle has like full sentences and not just like, Rosalina has a lot of one-word reactions or really short phrases, but Noelle will like have like little paragraphs that she says.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
You can actually go to the Genshin Impact. It's like a wiki page almost, not wiki. It's something, but like a fandom page. I can't remember what it's called, but if you there's where you can hear the English, the Chinese, and the Japanese Noelles. Like you just kind of click, and it's like all the voice lines. Like you can. Just
that's interesting. I'm gonna look it up and put it. I'm gonna try to look it up and then link it below so you guys can check it out. Let's see here. Oh, by the way, Genshin Impact is they've already announced that it's coming to the Switch. It's not out yet, but I know that's coming to the Switch.
I have a friend who keeps saying, I keep meaning to play it, but I'm waiting for it to come to the Switch.
So they've already announced it. It's just we're just waiting for it to port over to the Switch. And it's going to be a huge game. I believe it's on the Switch.
The graphics are stunning.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, a lot of people compare it to Breath of the Wild because both games are.
Well, you explore that world. And I had no idea what to do the first time I played it. I'm terrible at it, by the way. And I was just running around, swimming and climbing things and going, where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? And then I realized there was a compass, and I was like, oh, follow the compass. But I was on there for probably 20 minutes, just on the beach, not sure what I was doing.
I actually just downloaded that game, I think last week for PlayStation. Like, should I? Okay. I bought it on PlayStation. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to wait to go for the Switch. I have it here. I can play it. But let me just wait for the Switch one to come out.
And you can download it for free on your phone if you have the space. Like, it takes up space, but you can.
I also have it on my phone too as well. But I haven't started playing it yet. But I'm going to start pretty soon.
It takes time because it doesn't tell you it's not as obvious as like Mario Kart where you're like, I go around. And
then I think on the actual phone you can't use a controller. I like playing with the controller rather than the tapping ease.
I've been playing tonight. I'm going to be playing Among Us with a bunch of the actors, and I play it on my phone, and it is really hard to control.
Oh man, that's a really fun game. That's awesome. Let's see here. Charlotte Grace Laver. She is asking. Let's see here. Would you like to have a Rosalina spinoff? Like, per se, like Luigi's Mansion had his game. Would you like to have a Rosalina spinoff?
Oh, gosh, that would be so fun. Yeah, 100%. That would be awesome. Yeah.
What would you think that would look like if we had like a spin of Rosalina?
I mean, I don't know. Like something with the Cosmos probably,
right?
Involving her and Lumas and some kind of a quest, with that, I guess. But I think that would be really cool if that happened.
That's awesome. And then we also have another question here from Charlotte. If you could do a voice for any other game, what kind of game would that be?
I'm really interested in getting into anime right now. Like
that's awesome.
Anime thing. I mean, Genshin's kind of an anime thing.
Yeah.
That's been something an area of interest for me. Mm-hmm. I'm such a Studio Gilby fan, and like Spirited Away. And did I say that right? Did I pronounce it right? I'm never sure if I'm saying it right. Gilby.
For what? For Spirited Away?
Studio Gilby is the studio that produces all that.
Okay, yeah.
But I think I'm pronouncing that. Someone will probably correct me.
I don't know either. So we're on the same boat.
But like all those My Neighbor Totoro and all that kind of stuff. Like I love that kind of animation in those shows. So I would love to be involved in a project like that. That would be really fun.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That is awesome. And then let me see here. This would have to. I'm gonna go ahead and read all three questions they had because let's see here. All right, so it's more like a question because it looks like they have they're interested in voice acting. Because how can someone with very little acting experience become a voice actor?
Well, voice acting, I mean, it's right in the title. So if you wanted to do commercial work or industrial, where you're just like narrating, or audiobooks, you could probably get away with doing those things without a ton of acting. Like if you just have a pretty voice or an interesting voice, but here's the thing that people don't. I think people have this traditional idea of an announcer voice, where it sounds kind of like this, it's like a slick announcer voice. Well, almost every call I get, like every audition notice I get, says nothing slick, polished, or announcery. we're in a trend right now where they want people to sound
natural,
relatable, like people they can trust. They want you to sound like a neighbor or a friend. So if you're practicing, if you're like, well, I've got a really great sounding voice, what they really want is someone who sounds genuine. So I'm like, just sound like yourself, and like you are recommending this thing. And some of that involves acting to some degree. But I will say I do hear sometimes commercial stuff where it really sounds like someone with no training at all.
Yeah.
And I think they're going for that sound in some cases. So I think for commercial stuff, you can really get away with sounding like just a person they brought in off the street, like someone with no training and they brought you in. I think that's a thing right now. I don't know that it will last, but I think it's a thing right now. But if you're talking about anime and video games, it's acting.
Okay.
And I feel like anyone who's asking me that question in this context is probably interested in video games and animation, because that's the stuff that's fun. But yeah, you do really need to be an actor. And if you have no acting skills at all, like you really like, someone's like, okay, sound like you're in pain. And you're like, I don't know how to do that. Can you sound sad? I don't know. You really angry? Not really. Can you, be impassioned and sound like you're in love? No. Like if you don't have any acting training to be able to do that, then no, you probably won't get cast in a lot of that type of work.
Yeah. So training, so a lot of training.
You can be an actor, and then here's the thing I always like to qualify when I say something like that. There are 1,000 routes to this career, and very few of them look identical. And my path that worked for me and what I did and the things that I did and tried and worked and didn't work are completely different than other people. Some people who like just hit it big right away, came right out, like, suddenly had like some great opportunity because they were just the right place, the right time, and the right look and sound for whatever was going on. Great and fantastic. And then other people who sometimes are really talented, but it just took a longer slog and a longer climb to get where they were going. Neither one is less valid, in the end. It's not like, oh, it's like better to have it than, because sometimes people who like burn bright at first, like, get a lot of success, and then for whatever, like for instance, child stars, like they talk about why that's such a hard thing is because you have all this fame at a really young age, and then you age out of it, and then people sometimes maybe aren't as interested in you when you're older. Some people have managed to like really do that, like Neil Patrick Harris, right? Like, I mean, he was a child star who, has gone on to, but he's also just like kind of talented across the board, singing and acting, and like he's got so much going on. But then you do see a lot of these like child stars on sitcoms who grew up and, it wasn't quite the same, and that can be really hard. And then people who like came to it much, much later in their life, like had whole other careers. And like, I want to say like Bryan Cranston, like didn't have young success. He had older success in his life. He had big breaks. He was in his 40s, I think. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't really, what was the question? I started rattling on like I do. And
no, you've been answering the question. So it says, how can somebody with little experience become a voice actor? And you answered the question. Yeah,
I was gonna say, you can get lucky. That's what I like to say. Like, I'm like, you can sometimes just be the one, and who knows if that's going to be you. But don't be discouraged if you're not. Like, don't be like, ugh, I like showed up, I wasn't discovered, or I went on one audition and I didn't get it, or people aren't interested in me right now. And it's like, then go get some training and just keep working on your craft. And if you don't love it, stop doing it. Like, and that doesn't mean forever. That just means stop doing it right now. If it is absolutely ruining your life and making you miserable and making you not like yourself, take a break. Come back to it when you feel better. I didn't do LA in my 20s. I don't know that I would have survived it. Like, I don't think, and not because LA is a horrible place. Like, it's, I know that people like to be like, it'll eat you up and it'll spit you out. I did not have the confidence at 20 that I have now. Because I needed to have some like smaller, easier successes first I kind of built up to that. So it's not that I didn't deal with rejection in other places I was living. It just didn't like feel as overwhelming as I think it could be if you kind of plunge right in here. But that doesn't mean that you can't come here and experience rejection and be fine, because you're a more confident person than I was at that age. It really depends on the individual, but I'm like, if you are miserable doing this, like you hate it and it makes you feel sad and bad, take a break. And maybe you'll find something else you really love and want to keep doing that instead. Or maybe you'll like it'll recharge you in some way. And then you come back to this when you're feeling better. There's no rules. There's no rule that says you gotta like. I hate that whole thing of like, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? And someone's like, 13, and they say, I want to be this, and then it's like, great. And then they later go, actually, I want to do this. It's like, but you wanted to be this. It's like,
exactly.
People do it all the time. I know people who have gotten master's degrees and not used them. They went back to grad school and they got the thing and they suddenly went, I'm not passionate about this, and didn't use it. Fine.
I know a doctor. I know a doctor that way. A doctor who went to school 10 years. At the end, it's not
massive debt, and then just got into it and went, I'm not happy. And that I know people who are lawyers, like, making bank, making all this money, hated their life. Like, it just wasn't their thing. And other people who did that and love it. You got to do you.
Isn't there an actor, an Asian actor who's actually a doctor, and he's Kim Young, I think his name. I can't remember his name, but he's an actor, but he's actually a doctor as well.
Lots of people had these other, and that's, I have this great artistic director, my favorite director that I worked with in Portland. I remember saying, I was teaching like an audition class to teens, and she was talking to them, and they were like, there was a Q&A after this panel they'd done, and they were like, where should we go to school to study? And she goes, really anywhere and anything, because there's something a little singular about people who are just actors and haven't lived any other kind of life, because so much of being a good actor is about having life experience and about having a lot of experience. And it's funny because the first show that I did for her, I was cast in a show where I was a manager, like kind of a mid-level, the role was a mid-level manager in a really snarky corporate environment, like, very pecking order. And I was like, oh, I know this world, because I'd worked in the corporate world. Like, so as soon as I like got that script, I was like, yeah, I know this. I know who to be and like how to be. And I've actually seen people behave like this in that world. And I booked it. And I know a lot of it had to do with me just understanding that world so well. So all this time I had spent doing something that some people might be like, that was a waste of your time. That wasn't artistic. You're right. It wasn't, but it paid my bills. It gave me health insurance. It started my 401k. And it helped me understand an entire world. So I always tell people, when you're working these side hustles and these other jobs, just observe, just like file those things away. All the weird people, if you're in customer service, your front row seat to character work is beyond, because you will never encounter weirder people than the general public, especially people who are in restaurants who are hungry, or the grocery store who are hungry, or just crazy. Like, just the amount of genuinely nutty people that you meet when you're working in the public, like just the things people say and do, you couldn't make it up. Like, someone
that's true. That's very true.
And it would never match the story of someone who actually worked in a job where they had to help someone who came in and just did something wild, where you're like, what? That's one of the most, I think the most, not the most, one of the best advices I've heard in a long time. It's like the school of life. You're learning from what you're doing right now, and you can apply this to something else later on, something greater that you love to do later on. So, go ahead. I was going to say, I majored in English and theater, and I was focused in writing, and I had a really great writing professor who was like a published author as well. And I remember him kind of saying, I think you kind of, at this point, you just need to go live some life. Like, he was like, you're a good writer, you have great skills, you just don't have much experience. Like, go work, go get your heart broken, go live. Because if you go straight from high school through college, there's nothing wrong with doing that. You're kind of just getting all that done. But when you graduate, you're like 20. If you do that straight through, you're like 21, 22, depending on when your birthday is. And if all you really know is classes and, and if you had a kind of a nice life, which I kind of had, like, my parents were still together. I hadn't lived through divorce. I hadn't experienced a lot of death, like people who experience like death of family members or something young. Had my heart broken and broken up with people, but nothing where I was like really attached or like if that's all you're kind of working with for either acting or writing, which were the two things I really wanted to do at that point, I didn't have a lot to draw from, not much had happened to me. So don't underestimate life, like you said, like the school of life as being a great thing for an artistic career of any kind, whether you're writing music, whether you're becoming an actor, whether you're writing books, whatever it is, you write and you act what you know best.
And that actually kind of answers also the next question. It's by Tyler Battershow. Been a good subscriber for years now on the channel. And he says that he's been auditioning for many roles, trying to make his way into acting for years now. And he's curious how, basically, you already answered the question, how did you get into voice acting? But basically all this advice that we've been getting, really valuable advice, for you who, if you've been trying to get into voice acting for a long time or interacting for a long time? Yeah.
Understand, voice acting is crazy competitive right now. Everybody wants to do it. Technology changed the game. Like, it used to be you went to your agent's office and you auditioned there. And then suddenly, like right after I got a voice agent, like almost immediately after, it was like, you need to have a home setup. Like, you need your own mic, you need, all these things. And suddenly when like things like Voices 123 and, voices.com, I think like all these things kind of came up where you didn't need an agent to get an audition. Like, you could just kind of like scope those things out, and like people post on social media, like all these people who suddenly are unrepresented, and they can be involved and they can book, and these things can happen. And, social media and technology changed the game, but it also made it a lot more competitive.
Yeah, it did. I mean, everybody has their own little mini studio.
The pool got so big, and you're like a fish, right? Like, where it used to be a much smaller little, like, it was like a fish bowl, and now it's like a massive swimming pool. It just expanded. And as soon as that happens, and I read this great quote. I'll see if I can find it. Someone posted this on Instagram today. And I think it really pertains to that. Let me, if I can't find it quickly, I will give up, but I think I remember who said it. It was talking about the process.
Yeah, and most of the questions are basically related to this exact thing we're talking about right now.
Well, here it is. So it was posted by Worldwide Talent Management on Instagram. Okay. The unsexy but brutal truth. Success comes to those who do the boring, monotonous things every day for years. No hacks, no shortcuts, no schemes. It's the basics. Done every single day for a long period of time. Outlasting the competition is the overlooked secret. And there is a lot of truth in that. Like, I know people who like didn't happen right away, so they were like, must not be for me, I give up. And I know people who are less talented who've stuck with it and were willing to do unglamorous things for a long period of time, who have had great success. And they're just great business people. They want it more. They persevere. And you can, I mean, I suppose if you had no ability, like, let's say you're just like no ability whatsoever, like, yes, you could stay at it for a long period of time. But if you continue to train, if you are open to feedback, that's key, right? Because if let's say we were working together and I gave you a note and you're like, Laura, I know. Why don't you just like stop telling me what to do? And you were like, I'm going to do, like, and that was your
that's not a good answer.
Every teacher, if everyone who gave you, and let's say everyone was giving you the exact same feedback, like it would be helpful if you did this, and you were like, no, that could stick you in a spot. Yeah. But it only takes one person to say yes. So let's say this thing that you were doing that everybody else didn't like, one person came along and liked it, then it could still happen. It just might take you a lot longer to get to that yes. Whereas, people who are willing to try a lot of different things and to take feedback and to change and to work on their stuff and experiment with it. And that doesn't mean that everybody who gives you advice is giving you great advice. I've had advice where I'm just like, okay, I'll try it, but I don't think that's going to work for me. But I was willing to try it. And those things can help you improve. But it is about sticking in because, and again, do other things in the meantime. Have a life outside of working on your career. You never know who you're going to meet, who's going to connect you to something. This is a job that changes on a dime. You can literally have nothing on the horizon on Monday and then booked some incredible job on Tuesday. Change your whole year.
That's amazing about this is to me, this is one of the best one-on-ones I've had in a long time because we've had such amazing advice. I mean, this is gold, guys. So you better be listening. Open your ears if you are into voice acting, even if you've been doing it for a while, and you want to know how to improve, what to do to actually continue, not to lose hope. I mean, one of the best advices that we've heard so far is live life. Make so that live the school of life and let that inspire you.
Have you ever heard it's easier to find a job when you have a job and it's easier to find a relationship when you're in a relationship? Because there's something about the smell of desperation that we just naturally are a little I mean, I used to be in HR. Many other things that I used to do because I was paying the bills and I was doing theater at night. So I would interview people and hire and train and do all that all day. And then I would go do theater at night. And I was making next to no money for the theater, but I loved it. And that was my thing. I never skipped school when I was in high school because you couldn't go to rehearsal if you weren't in class all day. If there was any class you weren't in, you couldn't attend rehearsal. So I never skipped school. So I could go to rehearsal, and I went to my day job so I could go do rehearsal at night, so the day job afforded me to be able to go do that, like to be able to be in these shows, because you weren't getting enough money to pay your bills doing those shows until I was equity, which is union, so they're actually like paying you a living wage. So, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. What was the thing that just came up? You were talking about,
About the journey to after having a lot of auditions or trying for many years to get a role.
Yeah, and now I forgot what I was going to share about that. Couldn't remember it.
We've had so much value out of this podcast. It's insane. I mean, it's going to be one that I'm going to go back and listen to, because I like entertainment as well. I love acting as well. I've been acting for years, and that's why I'm doing all this. Nintendo Academy, not Mike Nintendo Academy. We actually rebranded Mike Odyssey. But you see the channel, you'll see some skits that I've been working on.
I just remembered what I was going to say. We're talking about being desperate. So sometimes people come in and interview for a job, and they were just like, I just need a job. I don't care. I just want this job. Anything. I'll do anything. And you're kind of like, well, choosing anything is different than choosing this company. Yeah. Right? Like, there is something you got to remember when you walk up and you're like, I got to eat. And it's not that I didn't feel compassion for that. I get that. You do got to eat, and you do need to, you do. But I was looking to hire someone who was going to be a great fit with the organization and was going to stay. When someone comes to you and they're like, I'm just desperate, give me anything. People will tend to pull back. Like if I went up to someone and went, I just want a boyfriend. I don't care. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you do. I don't care what your personality is. I just don't want to be alone. It's much less attractive than I'm looking for someone that I really connect. Like you're married. Like when you met your partner, I'm sure you weren't just looking for anyone who wanted to be with you. Yeah. You wanted someone who specifically wanted you. And that's a very different approach. And the same is true in the way you approach your career and these jobs. And so I think when you have a life and you're happy and you come to these jobs with joy and these auditions with joy and I want to share this because I love this. I like doing this. I like being here. I like doing this for an audience. This is exciting to me. It's interesting. I'm delighted by it still. It's so much different than the jaded person who's just people don't like me enough, and if I don't get this job, that's a very different energy that you're walking in with.
Yeah, it's like walking into a really specific high chain of stores that everybody goes to because they're cheaper, but everybody's so unhappy inside. Yeah, so I completely agree. Completely agree. Make sure that if you audition for something or if you try something, make sure that you have a passion for it.
Make sure you're having fun, because honestly, I can tell you jobs I've auditioned for, and I was reading the specs and I tried to do it according to specs, and then you hear the job and it's someone who did nothing close to the specs. Yeah. And you're going, what? I guess they knew it when they heard it. You try to be it is important to pay attention to the specs, but a lot of times when I'm auditioning for a job, I'll do one according to specs, and then I'll do something that's really different that I just think is interesting. And many times if you book it, you go in and you're like, which one did you like? Because they were completely different. It's that random one you did where it was a little bit off the specs. It kind of I want them to know I can take direction and I can read that this is what you asked for, but I'll give you that. And then here's just another idea. And I think sometimes if you hear, if you imagine being on the other end, you always have to think about, I'm a casting person. I'm listening to thousands of auditions, sometimes literally hundreds of things. What's going to pop out is probably going to be something that wasn't like what everybody else did. And there's lots of talented people who can follow direction and can give you that thing you're asking for. But sometimes what becomes really interesting and charming is the thing you didn't expect. And suddenly you're like, oh, that kind of works. It shouldn't work, but it kind of works. Okay, let's do that. And then that's when you hear the final thing going, that's not what they asked for. It's like, no, but they fell in love with it. They knew it when they heard it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's super awesome. And it reminds me of an interview that I used to have when I was younger, looking for a job at Target. And something you said, okay, that's probably why I didn't get that job. Because when I sat down on the interview, I was so willing to get the job. I was willing to do anything. That was my mistake. That's why I told him. I said, look, I'm here, super talented. I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. I'll do whatever instead of exactly for the job they were hiring for. So I put myself out there as a multi-facet person. Like I can do this and do this, and rather than just focus on the actual job I was applying for, you know. So yeah, it's important that I think when you maybe audition, make sure that you are 100% focused on what you're actually auditioning for, and because maybe if you're all over the place with whoever you're auditioning with, they won't see you, like they won't see that focus that you have, or they will see the unfinished you, like the raw person who needs to go back and live a little bit and then come back and then experience it. What do you think?
And yeah, if you find you're just getting too wrapped up and anxious and stiff, in auditions, find something to help you break it up. That might mean reading it with some like if you live with like a little kid, give that script to a kid and let them do it for you. Be like, here, do this. See what they do, because kids aren't conscious. Like after a certain age they are, but like kids in grade school, you give that to like a 10-year-old who can read and like, here, read this for me, and just listen to how they attack it, and then be like, okay, make it funny, and just see what they do and steal. Like just get inspired by what someone who's not thinking inside the box would do. Like kids are a great barometer for that, because they don't know the rules, so they break them all the time.
That's awesome. That's guys. I hope you're listening. Because there's a lot of valuable information that we need to. I'm applying it to myself as I hear it as well. So yeah. So we have here Rosalina, the voice of Rosalina. You guys know her as the voice of Rosalina. She's also an amazing actress, and she's the voice of Genshin Impact. Is it what was her name? Nobel. I was gonna say Laura, but I'm like, that's your name.
That's me.
But yeah, guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed and really taking this to value, because I'm gonna share this interview with a lot of my friends who are really looking for advice. As you see here, a lot of the questions have to do with voice acting. For some reason, I don't know how this came together, but we landed the right person who gave us the perfect advice for anybody who is out there. That has this dream of either being an actress or an actor or even a voice actor. I think they're both connected, because if you want to be a voice actress or actor, you have to be an actor yourself. We've heard that you have to, for example, go to school, find an improv class to help you be more creative, to get that out there. And anything else you recommend?
Not everyone's going to like it. Yeah. It's not for everybody, and that is okay. You can still enjoy it as an audience member. Yeah,
of course. And what else do you have going on? For example, like say what things you have going on pretty soon in your voice acting career and anything.
Well, if you're in Arizona, I'm going to be at the Game On Expo in Phoenix, August. I think it's the 6th and the 7th. Might start on the 5th. I know I'm coming in on the 5th, but I think it doesn't start. I think it's like just the weekend, the 6th and the 7th. So that's in Phoenix. And then I'm doing, I think it's Retropalooza.
Retropalooza, yeah, I think that's that one.
In October, and I don't know the exact dates. But if you follow my Instagram,
October 10th, it was?
What'd you say?
I think it's October 10th.
I think so. 10th. I think you're right. Yeah, it's so that's coming up in October. Those are like 2 live events that I'm doing. If people want to come and say hi, and I'll print some things if you're interested in that, or you just want to come chat. We've talked about this before in the other interview, but if you come to something like that and you just don't want to buy anything, but you want to come say hi, please come say hi. Like, I don't ever be like, oh, I can't come up because I can't afford this. Yes, you can. If you paid to get in, you can come say hi.
Say hi, take pictures.
Exactly.
Autographed.
I do pretty consistently try to post on Instagram about projects that I have going on or appearances that I have coming up. So that's a great place to check if you're curious.
Awesome. Yeah. So what is your Instagram handle?
It's just my name, Laura Faye Smith. That's
easy.
Yeah.
Yes, and we'll have it here, right here on screen as you see here. So this is her handle. You can go ahead and visit and follow Laura. She's also on Instagram, right? Not on Instagram, on Twitter as well?
On Twitter, yeah. Those are the main 2. Sometimes people will try to reach out to me on Facebook. I have an account. I never am on there.
I'm the same way.
Over a year, easily, maybe 2. So you're not missing anything. And I'm not adding people to that because it's not a place I'm staying active. So it's not personal if I don't add you there. I'm just
Yeah, so Instagram, Laura Faye Smith, and also on Twitter at Laura Faye Smith as well, right?
Yep, simple.
Perfect. So thank you so much for spending time with us. This has really been an amazing and valuable meeting we've had, and I hope that you guys out there have gotten this value because we have value here. Thank you a lot for your time. And I know you have a lot of things going on and you made time for us here on the channel and on the podcast. So we're truly blessed to have you. And for real, thank you.
My pleasure. It was really nice talking to you.
Yeah, you too. So, all right, guys. So this is Laura Faye Smith, the voice of Rosalina, the voice of, what's the character name again?
Noelle.
Noelle.
You can be my agent, but you can't be my publicist.
There you go. You see. And then, of course, she's an amazing actress. I really go ahead Google her and check out all the work she's been in, because you'll be rewarded as well to see all these facets of these multi-talented facets of Laura Faye Smith. You have to enjoy them all. So we'll see you on the next exciting adventure here at the Nintopics Podcast with Mike Odyssey. All right, peace and bye.
Bye.
Nintopic Podcast, all things Nintendo. With Mike Odyssey, we're talking games like Super Mario.